of licensing policy, the committee is respectfully asked to determine whether the application for a premises license should be granted in full, granted in part, or refused. Please note, Chair, that the committee cannot take into consideration the concerns raised referencing planning matters or issues concerning the lease when considering the application request. I respectfully ask that you refrain from raising any points regarding these matters. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, so now, Elena, if you would present your case, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm Elena. I'm the owner of the Lacy Nook together with Jason Williams. We also live in Upper Walthamstow Road. So we are kind of neighbors. We do come from the Walthamstow community. I've had a restaurant before in Stoke Newington from 2016 till 2019. So we do come with hospitality background. We just wanted at the beginning to clarify for everybody that we are a restaurant, not a bar. We would like to address everybody's concerns, all the representations, and we've kind of divided them all in different topics. So we'll talk about noise. People are concerned about the rubbish, parking. There was concern about our premise being close to the school, and also the whole space of Wood Street walls, Wood Street Studios. So basically our focus is mainly on food. We are not a bar. And I think I wanted also to clarify, because most of the assumptions were made based on the event from last year. So we were not the operator of the last year's event, which was running on 21-day TENS, a temporary event notice. So that was organized by Jelly Deal, which is a business registered as bar. So we were just the food collaborator on that event, and we were serving food. So we did not have much saying about the noise or how the rubbish is distributed. And yeah, we would usually finish around 8 o'clock, pack up and go home. So yeah, people I think were confusing us that is the same event business that organized the event last year, but we are different people. We wanted to also emphasize that, yes, we did apply for 5 days alcohol license, which is from Wednesday to Sunday. However, we are planning to be open only at night, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So we'll open from 6 o'clock, and then last food order would be 9:30, we said. Yeah. So there will be kind of a wind down period when the last order, let's say, probably would be like a dessert or one last drink will be 9:30, and then guests will be asked to leave by 10 o'clock. So we want to assure people that there won't be any people on premise after 10 o'clock. Yes, there might be a few of us staff cleaning up and closing down, and but there would be training in place and supervision of staff. How is that going to be done? Last year's event was we would serve occasionally 100 to 200 people, but we are not running on that capacity this time. Would be roughly around 40 people capacity. So it's a fully sit down restaurant. So I would say that the noise coming just from 40 people capacity is absolutely different from serving 200 people. So it's a cover, restaurant sitting cover of 40 people at a given time. Jason, would you like to add something?
Also, the premises will be covered in the evening, so any benches outside will be removed from daytime trade, and the covered area that has been built now will host the evening event. The cover will hold in some sound if people are concerned about noise in the evening. and it's also surrounded by the containers, which also will compact sound. Music will just be very light background.
Yeah, we did not apply for recorded music, so there won't be any music, really loud music played on site, purely background ambient music. And when we did consult with the licensing department, they said that reasonable background music is when two people can have a dinner and not raise the volume, their voices above the music. So it's just the conversation is flowing. Another people were concerned about the noise coming from disposing rubbish. So we will make sure, let's say the glasses mainly, the glass won't be disposed in the evening. So that will be just done in the morning when we open, when there is people on site and everybody's awake. As one of the main concerns that everybody kind of made a point is the school. So next to Wood Street Studios is Woodside School. We were very, very transparent from the very beginning that what we are planning to open there with the school, with the head teacher. And we did receive a support letter from the school, which I believe is one of the appendix. We believe that we won't affect the school hours, first of all. The kids, the children, when they're in their schoolyard, they don't have direct access to the Wood Street Studios, so they can't really see what's happening inside. However, we don't see, we are not going to be a bar, so mainly people will come there and have brunch. And I do think that sometimes people want to have a glass of wine with their lunch. So that's the reason we applied for alcohol license served from 12 o'clock. Also, based even on the last year's event, most of the people who arrived at 3 o'clock when we were serving food were mothers with their children. Just after the school would finish, they would just sit there with the kids. We did serve soft drinks and ice cream. So they would occasionally have some food and the kids would freely play around, because it's quite a kind of safe area. The gates, the big gates are there, and then is the communal garden. So the kids will kind of free run around and play, and the parents would have a coffee or a drink. And
also we'll have the imposition of a requirement for children to be accompanied by an adult at all times.
Yeah, they were always attended by adults.
We won't be letting kids come on without a guardian or responsible person.
And also at the moment at Wood Street Studios, there are lots of, there is, for example, a gardening course going on for children. So sometimes the kids arrive, the parents are just standing there and waiting. So if we are to organize more events for the children, parents can always sit down and have a drink. And we believe it would be actually good for the community, because it's quite a safe space for children. If people are concerned about crime, also there is CCTV cameras operating in the area. There would be we would add a few more cameras. So there would be the recordings will be kept for 28 days, and in case of a crime disorder, we would be able to have a proof and contact the police.
I mean, in our experience, and we've had about 10 years experience in hospitality, we've never really experienced anyone being excessively drunk in our restaurant. People come to enjoy the food more than anything. Yeah. But we will have a challenge 25 policy. We will not allow alcohol to be consumed outside of the premises that's been purchased in the premises. We'll have specific times between sales and close of premises. We'll have a record book to record incidents on the premises.
And of course, effective and responsible management of premises and trainings for the staff. We also will have a book of recordings for incidents in case there is an incident on site. we believe that most of our customers are local residents. There will be families with children, couples. The age would be between 30 to 65. We don't really attract a very young crowd of 18 plus. They would almost rarely. Yeah. So it's like 30 plus. Obviously, for safety, we would have fire safety signs, firefighting equipment, fire extinguishers. There are 2 fire exits, the front gate and the back. There would be first aid on site. One of us would be a fire marshal. We'd do the course. Of course, suitable public liability insurance. That's all been taken care of. And what else was people? So yeah, we just wanted one more thing to clarify, which is not really relevant to the alcohol license, is everybody was concerned about planning. So we just wanted to inform people that in 2020, the Business and Planning Act from 2020, they introduced a significant change of class use. So everything that was A1 to A5 now became Class E. So the classes A1 to A5, B1, D1, and D2 are now revoked. So everything is Class E, which is a broader category, and it's commercial, business, and services users. So we do belong in Class C, which is also food and drink.
Thank you. Oh. Elena, is that all you want to say at the moment? We will be asking you questions shortly. Okay.
Sure. I just want everybody complained also. Again, it's not relevant to the alcohol license. People make comments about the space that looks like a junkyard. They're not happy. So basically, our initial priority was visual improvement of the actual site. That was kind of in collaboration with Woodside Studios. So we've built a beautiful terrace. We've brought so much green, new things being planted around the boundary walls. The living walls have been installed. So the space together with the community garden will look amazing. If not this summer, because the plants need to perk up, but for next summer for sure. So I think we did really make an effort to make that space better for the community. And one last thing that I forgot to mention, there is on the operating hours, we did say we want to open from Wednesday to Sunday. At the moment, we're not opening on Wednesday night. We wanted to keep Wednesday night and Sunday evening for potential community events. So let's say we want to do a book club. People can use the space, have a glass of wine, let's say, and a nibble. Lots of people have been in touch with us asking, oh, can we do a morning meditation on the terrace? And we said, yes, so Monday and Tuesday when we are closed, people can actually use that space for community events.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah.
Thank you very much, Elena.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to now just intervene briefly to say we have talked about the planning issues before this meeting started with our legal advisor, Donia. And the planning issues are not under consideration here. We are strictly talking about the license here. So, I mean, we know that is a concern of residents. But I was also informed that the Planning Enforcement Department of the Council is actually sort of looking at all the planning issues that have been raised around this. So that is a different procedure to be carried out in a different part of the council. So all we're concentrating on is, assuming all those planning matters are resolved, would you be able to have a licence as you have requested? So that is what we're considering today. And with that in mind, Mark, and this may start to get complicated for you to say a lot now, I don't know, but would you like to speak for a short while, perhaps 3 minutes or so?
Yeah, yes, Chair. 3 minutes, so I'll give it a go. Hi, hello everyone. Just cover some of the points that Eleanor and Jason have raised. Just give you a quick summary. Wood Street Walls are a community arts organisation founded in 2016 as a response to the lack of affordable art space. We primarily deliver public art prior to operating the space in 2017. We successfully raised £40,000 through crowdfunding, with 18,000 from the Mayor of London, and we agreed a lease with London Borough of Waltham Forest in 2016 with an agreement to fit out the building, which cost over 115k in capital, with 35,000 provided by London Borough of Waltham Forest, and the rest made up from Wood Street Walls. Any access, the building is now home to 15 creatives. The money that is raised and any money that is raised from that revenue is put into public art that we commission throughout the borough and beyond. The works for the building included a new roof and a full internal renovation, including a new WC and a kitchenette and restored flooring. Our workspace operating costs haven't changed since we opened in 2017, and they range anywhere from £200 a month per desk up into £240 for a workbench and a desk. That hasn't changed, despite since last year our rental has gone up by approximately 150%, under the backdrop of a 100% increase in our energy bills. We passed on any rent relief that was provided by Waltham Forest Council directly onto the tenants. The Lacy Nook pop-up and also the Jelly Deal pop-up helped secure the immediate future of Wood Street Walls due to the ongoing challenges during the pandemic. As a result, the money invested or raised was put in part back into the community garden, including a purchase of a new shed, seating, new gardening equipment, and gardening sessions that are hosted now twice a week, and a twice monthly art class that is for the elderly. The offering of Lacy Nook is vastly different to the Lacy Nook from the Jelly Deal pop-up, which will serve approximately 20% of the volume of people, around 40, as Eleanor has said, and drink won't be served without food. In use, as Ellen has also mentioned, in line with use of the building, which we confirmed with one of the heads of planning in 2021, our category that falls into category E. I believe there was a problem from just speaking to the planning enforcement, an old postcode was used for the initial lookup, and that happened on the site visit in 2021, which we clarified on site. And the head of one of the planning leads confirmed that a food and drink offering is possible within category E. In terms of the offering of the Lacy Nook, this does not impact the operation of the creative space, and it complements it and helps us become further sustainable. We class the Lacy Nook, Eleanor and Jason, as artisans too, making the majority of their food from scratch. And we understood was welcomed by the majority of the community during the flea market pop-ups run by residents of Barratt Road and other events that was run within line with the category use class of the building that was changed in September 1st, 2020. I believe that's it. Just a couple of things around parking. Any concerns around parking, it will be clear. It will be made clear on the menu and signage around the courtyard that to encourage active travel to the venue. We also, one sec. And in terms of the school, we had an open dialogue with the actual school and the headmaster and other members of the team, which is important to note, since March, and they were supportive. I understand that support has been revoked due to the academy potentially not being comfortable with the letter of support that was supplied. The letter of support was supplied by the school, not from the headmaster on a personal capacity. And as Eleanor said, this is an opportunity for us to be more outward facing for the courtyard. We believe it was underutilised given the space, and this gives the opportunity to run more events in line with complementing the public art we deliver around the borough, and we hope to make more use of it for community use. As an example, we've been approached to host building management meetings for the local residents, which we're happy to provide. And anybody who asks us, to use the space, we're happy to do that where possible. And we've been asked by a few people to host children's parties during the Jelly Guild events in other points. I believe that's everything, or I've covered the major points, but I'd happily ask any respond to any questions based on the feedback from residents.
Thank you, Mark. I think we've had a good lot of information there from Elena, and I think it's very useful that we've had Mark to put it in a context of the what's going on that site. We now move on to questions from the subcommittee, and Kay and Liz, do you have any questions for Elena or Mark?
Yes,
Kay.
Please, Chair. Thank you. Yeah, like you said, many of our questions were answered by Elena. Thank you for that. Because my questions was going to be how many customers at a time, and you said 40. Do you have a smoking area outside?
But I think the smoking area would be so there is a terrace, so then smoking will be forbidden on the actual terrace, but there would be like 3 benches outside of the terrace. I believe that would be a smoking area, but we haven't actually decided on that. Might be a smoke-free area completely.
Okay, because my next question was going to be, if you are going to have a smoking area outside, could the numbers be controlled? How many people go out at the same time to have a cigarette, especially after 8 o'clock in the evening, due to noise does travel? So, so you're saying you might not have a smoking area outside? Yeah,
but there were some discussions if we should be smoke-free, but we could have just a small designated area away from the tables within the premise where people can actually smoke. But I believe that would not be like 10 people smoking at the same time.
Yes, it could, yeah. If the numbers could be controlled, that'd be very good. Maybe have a notice, only 3 people at one time or something, and that way the noise is controlled that way. And how many staff would you have, Elena, working?
At any given time, I would say about 7 people.
7 people, that's good.
For kitchen, a bar, and 3 on the floor.
Okay, if there was any problem or any noise, how many people will intervene to stop the problem? Who will be qualified?
I think all the staff will go through training, and I would be running the front of house, so I'll be the manager. So I believe that would be people would have to be aware that as soon as they see, let's say, 3 people there, they need to make them aware that the noise needs to be kept to minimum. Also, we will put signage around. Please be respectful of the neighbours. That's
great. That's very good.
Wouldn't remind people to keep their levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And also maybe your phone number could be available to anyone who wants to ring if they have a complaint.
Sure.
Would that be possible?
Yeah, of course. And our number is actually public. You can find it everywhere on Google, on our website. So people can feel free to ring and complain, and we'll do our best to find a solution to it.
That's great. And and the place looks lovely. The greenery that you have done, I have to say, it looks very nice. Thank you, Chair. That's all the questions from me. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kay. Liz, do you have any questions?
Yes, I just got a couple. Thank you very much for your presentation, Elena. I've just got a couple of things, really. And one of them you've already touched on with regards to the number of staff. When I read, obviously, what you submitted, you talked about jobs, creating local jobs.
Yep.
So, you know, can you say more about that, and how many will that be?
I have to say there's been a pure struggle at the moment, because I've been putting adverts, looking for staff, social media, everywhere. It's very difficult to find staff. But we got in touch also with the Waltham College, maybe trying to find a few potential people, students who could work in the kitchen and get training.
Yeah.
Obviously, it would be a paid job, not an internship. Yeah, we would love to employ young people from the area. That would be great. Now, I've joined some also Facebook groups, so might look for young people because they're just finishing school, so something to do during the summer holidays. Definitely would like to. I always put like any local people that would like to join in. It would be nice that we can employ people from the borough.
Yeah. So you mentioned Waltham Forest College. Is that something that you are very heavily pursuing in terms of having that connection? Because
Chair, may I just interject here, if that's okay?
The connection.
I've got some information around that for Councillor Baptiste.
Yes, okay.
Just to add to that, so we've got a growing working relationship with Waltham Forest College, with Nadeem Khalifa and also Tom Vittles, who deals with the hospitality area. We've actively worked with apprentices on engagement days, mostly in Black Horse Road area, but we're in active conversations with them, and it wouldn't be they're genuine conversations that we're trying to move forward. But just to defer to Eleanor, it is a challenge in the current market around getting good hospitality staff. But we are actively pursuing that with Tom Vittles and the hospitality team in Waltham Forest College. Okay, right.
Well,
we've had some delays, obviously, with building work and with the licensing. So we are not really clear when we'll be able now to open. But yeah.
That's fine. I mean, I think it's just good to know, that dialogue is there. And then the other thing is your emission profiles, and you talked about the on-site production of a small number of crops for inclusion in the menu. So just tell me more about that, please. I think
Jason will speak his.
I'm in the final year of an environmental science degree.
Excuse me, sorry, who is this?
I'm Jason.
Who's talking at the minute?
Owner of the Lacy Nook.
Oh, Jason, sorry, I didn't see you there. Okay, yeah, go on.
Yeah, I'm in the final year of an environmental science degree. So my end of year summary was a carbon profile of our last pop-up. So I'll be using the knowledge I've gained over the past 5 years to apply this to the business and try and meet sustainability targets that have been set by the government, hopefully, and set an example in the borough. So I will be next year planting vegetables, inviting the community in. We'll be composting any waste we have. We will be buying sustainably sourced vegetables and, as much as possible, meats. We will be having a very low amount of meat served on the menu. We'll only be approaching farmers who use certain practices in the production of their food. And we'll also be publishing our carbon output each year so people can follow us if they so wish.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think that's all for now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baptiste. I've noticed there are a few hands up. One is Mark. Are you wanting to respond to anything further there?
Apologies, that was from last time, Chair, so I've just put my hand down.
That's fine, thank you. I see Sherman. Are you intending to, have you got something to say?
Hello, my name is Anne Philp. I'm actually the Secretary of Block A Management Committee at Greenacre Gardens. I wasn't signed in when you introduced the objectors. And I have a question.
Can I just ask you to hold on for a little while? We will enable you all the residents or representatives of residents to ask questions, but in a short while, okay?
It was just When you said there was nothing on the planning today.
Yes, no, can we come back to this in a little while?
Okay, no problem.
Okay, sorry, remind me of your name, because I've got Sherman. I think you're using someone else's computer, is that right?
I haven't a speaker on my home phone, so I've had to come into a council building to use a laptop.
Okay.
My name is Anne. My surname is Philp, who nobody can pronounce, so I always refer to myself as Anne. Okay,
thank you very much, Anne. I tend to refer to people with their first names because I can't remember two names for everybody usually, and I have written down. So we will come back to you very shortly, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, my questions were about the seating arrangements, because looking at the pictures on your application, this is my question to Elena and Jason. Is all the seating outdoors? Is that the case, or it's on this kind of terrace which is covered?
Yeah, it's all on the terrace which is covered.
Okay.
And yeah, on the weekends.
On the weekends, we've got several benches, and this is just during the day, that we'll put at the front of the decking and pergola. But by the evening time, we'll strictly have seating under the covered area. I mean, obviously, it's all weather dependent in Britain if we have
Okay, my question kind of in relation to that is about noise escape, because obviously it's not an enclosed area, and I know people often are concerned about even background music can create some noise. And how are you going to be sure that neighbours say, I don't know how far away the nearest neighbours are, but they're not going to be disturbed by the background music and the noise of people talking?
Well, when we had our meeting last week with one of the people who was actually in mild support of what we're doing, we mentioned to him that when we ran a second pop-up last autumn in September on Saturday and Sunday for 4 weeks, I believe, 4 weeks.
Yeah, 4 weeks.
We mentioned this, and we had a similar capacity then, around 40 people. We served during the day, and he was completely unaware that it was actually happening. And it's going to function in a similar way. You know, we're not going to be some raucous alcohol-fueled bar. It's going to be. I mean, the seating area is predominantly covered now, and the plastic used to actually cover that area is sound rated.
Okay.
So in terms of sound going up, it's going to, slow it down somewhat.
Also, last year,
thank you.
In the open, and now there is 2 additional containers on site. So the terrace is kind of actually tucked in. So there is a container on the left, one at the back, and then the one on the right. So it is kind of tucked in between 4 containers plus the roof. We truly believe that will definitely.
We will be carrying out sound checks as well, in line with environmental health, to see if just how far the sound travels and what can be done about it if it's a really big hazard to people in the local area.
Also, we will have plastic sheets on the sides because the rain kind of comes from one side.
Well,
so they can and gets cold. So they can go down.
Okay.
So definitely, if noise proves to be an issue, we can also put the plastic down at all times.
Thank you for that. My other question is again about sort of infiltration of things that people don't want in their neighbourhood. How far is the school from the site? Because I'm just thinking about the escape of noise again, but also cigarette smoke. And you've said you have 3 benches outside the terrace. So how close are they to the school or the parts of the school grounds that children are likely to be in?
I mean, at no point does the school overlook the premises, and the main gate is about 100 metres down the road.
Yeah. And what about the playground?
The schoolyard is, so the main building is kind of on the right, and there is the schoolyard in between, then the community garden, and then it's us.
Okay. So Chair, there is, yes, Mark, go on.
Hi, Chair. Just on that, where it's difficult to explain. The main gates, if you look straight down, you've got our lean-to, our covered area. That backs on to the back of the school, and it's covered by hoardings. However, as Jason Eleanor has said, the seating finishes way in front of the building, and there's enough. Well, it's up to someone else to decide if there's enough. But if the seating area where the food and drink offering is proposed to be is almost kind of diagonally the furthest distance away to the nearest point of where we connect to the school, if that makes sense. So it's about a 2-metre block which has been hoarded off, and it's 2.4 metres high. So, yeah, it's difficult to explain, but I believe that would be explained on the appendix and the plans shared. So I hope I.
Sorry, can I just make a point of order, because a lot of what's being said here is not factually correct.
Excuse me, who's talking just now?
Local resident that we are talking about.
Okay, can I come back to you in a short while? Because now we're going to move on to questions from other parties. Okay, now you're one of the other parties, and I'm going to ask. I'm going to sort of ask you in turn to if you have questions for Elena or Jason or Mark. But at this point, can I say that your conversation, if you like, is to be in the form of a question, because later on you will, all of you, have a opportunity to put your own case, if you like. Okay, so this is a question session in a sense. So Mark, have you finished talking about that particular item?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, I'm going to come now to the other parties and your questions, and let me start with how I wrote your names down when we first introduced ourselves. I have Andrew. Have you any questions for the applicant? Andrew? No. Andrew's maybe left, I'm not sure. Okay, Matthew.
Good afternoon, Chair. It's a question for it's a question for the legal representative. It's just, it seems a lot of matters that have been discussed don't directly relate to the promotion of the licensing objectives. For example, the extent of greenery within the premises, the stimulation of local employment, the ongoing sustainability of Wood Street walls. So, based on my conversations with Xavier previously, we are meant to be focused on the promotion of licensing objectives. So just to get some clarity, I think, for me at least, is are these matters relevant to us?
When the licensing committee make their decision, they only consider the evidence which are in respect of the licensing objectives, but sometimes it's difficult to stop people from sort of going off the subject. So you don't need to worry. Anything about planning or anything that's not relevant is not the committee aren't going to use it to make their decision.
Okay, that's as I thought. Thank you very much. It's very helpful.
Thank you, Matthew. Ruben?
Yes, I have a couple of questions for Elena and one clarification for the legal points, please. Can you confirm whether or not you have done any modelling at all to understand the level of noise that will be generated by your operation and 40 people? And has any design whatsoever been done into the acoustics of the structure you have built?
I can answer that in terms of the acoustics to the structure. As I said, the roofing is sound rated, so that will actually hold in some sound.
No, that doesn't answer the question. That's not designed, that's just use of the material. It hasn't been considered in terms of how sound will move around that structure, how it will escape from it. You've just used a material which has some sound rating.
Yes, which holds in sound.
No, that's not, technically that is not correct.
Ruben, thank you for your question. You have had the answer there. it is something that the committee will keep in mind when we consider this.
Okay.
The committee will be able to impose conditions on the licence, and there may be reason to impose conditions around how sound is managed on this. Okay, so thank you for.
There wasn't an answer to the question on whether or not they had done any modelling on how much sound would be produced by their operations.
Well, we can go through past experience of serving 200 people last year, and the example I gave earlier, one of your neighbours not being able to hear 40 people later on in that same year.
Okay, well, for the record, that's not verifiable information.
Thank you, Ruben.
And so I had one last clarification
another question
for the legal points, is that a lot of things are said that are conjecture and not or based on hearsay. Again, how will these be dealt with in your deliberation of the licence?
Hearsay is admissible in licensing hearings, but the licensing committee will focus on the licensing objectives when making their decision and will not take into account anything that isn't relevant to the licensing objectives.
Yes, but as an example, questions regarding noise and travel, if no one has tested how far it travels, how can you make an assessment of it?
They will make their decision based on the evidence given at the hearing, so that it's up to the committee to decide.
Okay. Well, thus far, no evidence has been provided, so that's what
But when the other persons have the opportunity to present their case, such as yourself, you can provide evidence, and the committee will decide how much weight they will give to your evidence and the other person's evidence. There's around, I think, 16 other persons who are probably going to make a case and provide evidence.
Thank you. Ruben, is that, are you happy with that? I will move on to Carolyn in that case.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, to the applicants, you've repeatedly said that you're not a bar and sought to distinguish yourselves from the events of last year. But your website says that you are a bar and that you are opening a bar at this venue. It says we are a bar and restaurant. And also your Instagram says that you are looking to expand this area. And I just wanted to know why that distinction has been drawn in all of your publicity that you are in fact a bar when you're now saying that you weren't, and also what your plans are for expansion.
Sure. I mean, when we said neighborhood restaurant and bar, when we say bar means that there would be a small dedicated area on site that will serve drinks. So the drinks won't be served without food. So there won't be just a bar.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm clear.
Predominantly, we are a restaurant. So when people come there, we would say, I'm sorry, you can't order a drink. You need to order something from the menu. So the drink needs to be accompanied by food.
Okay,
I will
clear that you're not a bar, that there is a bar. So it sounds to me like there is going to be a bar, but
we are doing a small bar. However, it's the coffee machine goes inside, the two beer taps, all the wine, all the fridges. So the drinks need to be stored somewhere. And I think every restaurant's got a bar. It's just that is a bar where the drinks are stored with a coffee machine.
Okay, that hasn't been my experience of every restaurant, but my other question was, what do you mean when you say you have plans to expand in this area? Because it already looks like a very large construction that you've built.
How old is this information? I mean, this is the expansion.
Yes, it says opening June 2022 at Wood Street with plans to expand.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to pardon my partner is from Eastern Europe and English isn't her first language. So she may write things in certain ways and people can understand them in a slightly different manner.
Where did you, that was when we announced when there was nothing on site. This is what we were explaining, that we are planning to expand because before we were a pop-up. Yes, we are expanding, becoming a restaurant, a permanent location.
There are pictures of your current site, and you do Elena a disservice because it's written in perfect English, and it specifically says that you have plans to expand. And I just wanted to know what those were, and I don't think I have an answer to that. So,
can you point out where you read that?
Well, I can't do it on here, but it's your Instagram, so you will have seen it.
Okay.
The current sites, and it talks about opening in June with plans to expand further.
Can I just intervene here and say, depending what sort of expansion it was, there would possibly be further licensing hearings or further planning.
Well, I mean, we've kind of
planning aspects to go through.
We've kind of expanded up to the fence,
Yeah.
so we can't go any bigger.
Neither we have plans to expand
Well, we
nowhere
don't
else.
have, yeah. This is
Okay.
A little bit out of
Can I? I'm sorry. I need to intervene because I think there has been a misunderstanding here. So what you've put now in your current application is the expansion that you have mentioned. This is it. Okay.
It says we will be Wood Street Walls will be our permanent location where we expect to grow, expand, and create lovely food for the hood. So it is about planning to expand once they're there. That was the question.
Okay, Mark, can you just clarify for us, please?
Hi, Chair. So just to repeat what I previously stated around the food and drink offering. So I can appreciate if there's some confusion, or it might. Just to be 100% clear, the nature of the category class of the studio requires that it will be a food and drink offering as a restaurant, and it will not be a bar. That has been made abundantly clear to us by one of the planning officers in 2021, and we don't expect, and Lacy Nook would not expect to run a bar and serve food. This is very similar to, albeit it's outside, Arte Pasta up the road, which again is a food and drink offering. Plans to expand, as we've already covered, Chair. There is plans to expand in terms of employment in the area. Eleanor and Jason will need more staff to propose, but we still need to run a creative workspace, which is the primary offering that generates revenue for us to commission artwork, which is our mission. And there isn't any other plans to its expansion in terms of staff. There isn't a plan for outside of the realms of what has been proposed.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark. I think that does clarify that particular question. Okay, let's move on. Sulaiman, do you have any questions of the applicant? Hello, Sulaiman, are you there? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Alex Smith.
Alex has had to leave the meeting. I've got her statement for later for her representation.
Do you want to read it now? Oh, for her representation. Okay, as opposed to questions. That's fine. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Next on my list is Romy. Hello, Romy. Have you got a question or one or two questions for the applicant, please? And this is a time for questions only rather than your case.
Yeah, what it is, I'm very concerned because we just live, our house is just opposite the venue. And when they have this restaurant and bar open last year, it makes so much noise. And also why Mark is using our number 1 Barrett Road. It's not 1 Barrett Road. So every time it's like food, drinks for them, they always ring our bell. This is ridiculous. It's not 1 Barrett Road. I'm 1 Barrett Road.
Okay, this is not really a question about the licensing application, but Mark, are you going to respond to that, please? Thank you. Yes,
Roby. So when I was alerted to this, so this was at the Jelly Deal pop-up. I believe I spoke to your son after that happened, and I understand that were deliveries that happened. I passed on my sincere apologies to your son at the time. We did not provide 1 Barrett Road as the address of the deliveries. But our address is Wood Street Studios, Barrett Road. We don't have 1 Barrett Road on our Google address, as we're aware. So my apologies, but this was down to the operator, the Jelly Deal at the time, that I believe put 1 Barrett Road as a mistake. That is my understanding, and I apologise, one, because I know they're early morning deliveries, and I did pass on my apologies to your son and offer to speak with you if you were prepared to do so.
What's your
Thank you.
application?
Can we, Romy, can we take that as read? And can you, Mark, maybe you could get in touch with Romy about this, if it's still an ongoing issue, because this is not actually part of the licensing considerations that we're here for today. Thank you very much, Romy. I'm going to move on now to Thomas.
Yeah.
Thomas, are you here?
Sorry, I am here. I do have a couple of questions. I would really like it if someone could read out my partner's statement, Alex Smith. I would definitely want to make sure that is heard.
That is going to be heard in the next part of the meeting, Thomas.
And I do have a question for Elena. When they touched on the subject matter of parking challenges, they stated they're going to encourage alternative ways of travel by advertising it on menus. Does that not defeat the point because they're already there? Can someone just please elaborate on that?
Yeah, when someone can actually make a booking, we can send. There is no parking on site.
Yeah.
You know, so they can be filled in from the get-go at the booking stage that there is no parking here.
Thank you.
And how, in terms of regulating noise, which I know is a big concern, and I still don't think we've had a proper answer on this yet. You mentioned smoking area is going to be potentially outside on benches. Now, again, if people are outside smoking and there's no coverage, again, how are you going to control that?
Do you mean the noise or the smoke?
Noise and smoke, to be honest.
Well, I think we went through that we said we can't have more than 3 people at the same time smoking outside. So the staff will be trained and said, make that point and advise that, I'm sorry, but you now at this moment, only 3 people can be outside smoking. But we will create a smoking area within the site, not on the street.
Okay, Thomas, has that answered your question?
Vaguely.
Okay, thank you for that.
There are many uncertainties in most of those statements, and I'm sure it leaves a lot of questions opened and open for interpretation. So I guess subjectivity.
Can I just say you will be able to make a statement, okay, in the next section. Brilliant. I'm going to ask for Anne Philp if she has any questions.
Yes, just one.
Okay, go ahead. This is a question to the applicant, Elena, or to Mark. Yes?
Mark. Can I ask what risk assessment was done for the builders? The building site at the moment.
We carry out a risk assessment and method statement related to work. That we get is similar to, I mean, Jason and Lacy Nook have been in charge of the build. If you're talking about risk assessment and method statements, we have a formal practice that we go on and carry out of our public works.
Jason on his company doesn't list it. He's a building contractor or a subcontractor. So
excuse me, Anne. Can I intervene here and say that I think this is part of the issue around building permission, planning permission, and so on, which is not part of what we're here to consider today. Okay.
Well, that's part of the risk assessment.
It's not part of the risks to do with the license are different from building risks, and the council's planning department are actually looking at the building and the construction and what's on the site at the moment and how it's happened. So that will be considered as part of that process. Okay, maybe Christopher Foxton, you could let Anne know how she can put any case to the building control or planning on that issue?
Yep. Hi, Anne. I spoke with the planning officers ahead of this hearing, and they said that there is a planning enforcement case open around this, and I can get Sherman to send you the email address of the appropriate officers for you to contact, if that's all right.
Well, that's very helpful. It's still a building site now. There's been no work completed. There's no roof or anything. It's an open yard that's there, not any buildings.
Okay, thank you, Anne, for that. And as I've said, well, as Christopher has said, you will get an email with information about how you can engage on that particular issue with the council. Okay, I'm going to come to Shuna now from Brook Road. Waiting patiently. Thank you very much for your patience. Hello.
Wait, hello, can you hear me?
We can.
I have a question for Elena, which is about, I'd like to know what you have for your extraction for the kitchen, because one of the issues from last year was about smoke and the smell.
The kitchen will be fitted with a flue with a frighteningly expensive carbon filter, which will extract the majority of the odours out of the kitchen.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Shuna? Is that all your questions? Thank you very much for that. The last on my list is Councillor Richard Sweden on behalf of a resident. Richard, are you there?
Yeah, yes, Chair, I'm here. Thank you very much. Could I just for Elena at the moment? Could Elena just repeat the revised hours of operation?
Yes. So we'll be doing evening hours. Talking about evening, from 6 o'clock till 10 in the evening, and the last food will be served at 9:30.
Yeah.
Guests will leave by 10 o'clock. And then the mornings would be just a normal cafe opening from 12 o'clock. And that is also from Wednesday to Sunday.
Yes, but the license that you're seeking is from 6.
No, we are seeking the license from 12 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Just because we are a restaurant, but that doesn't mean that people will be there drinking every day with their salad and toasty or whatever we are serving in the morning brunch.
So just to clarify,
yeah,
you're seeking to have alcohol served
during
school hours.
Yes.
Precedent. Thank you.
But I would like to make a point on that. Seems like everybody is bothered that we would serve alcohol during school hours. There are a few places around Waltham that are also located next to the school. For example, one of them Made in Portugal, which is literally opposite to the school. And
it isn't. I'm terribly sorry, Elena, but Made in Portugal is at the end of my road, and that is simply inaccurate.
But it's
so
opposite.
Please don't come up with inaccurate information. We know the area.
Yes, but I'm sorry, it's not inaccurate. I have an evidence.
It is inaccurate. It's not adjacent to a school. Look at a map.
It's opposite the main gate of the school.
Chair.
No, it isn't.
There is a school.
Excuse me. Can we take it that we are uncertain about this exact location? It seems to be it's very near to the school, at least.
I would invite the panel to look at a map. However, it is accurate that Made in Portugal is on the opposite side of a main road to a fence that borders the grounds of a school, but it is not opposite the main gate of a school, I assure you, and the children do not pass Made in Portugal in any numbers going to a school.
Thank you, Richard, for that clarification. Thank you very much.
Can I interject there with...
I'm sorry, who's the speaking? Oh, Jason, sorry again. Yes, quickly, please.
I've worked on site for the past 6 months, building and renovating all the recycled units there. Now, I watch when school chucks out at the end of the day. Now, the majority of school children leaving Woodside School walk up Wood Street. Very few pass the main gates of Wood Street.
Okay, thank you for that. That is the end of
Hang on, I haven't started.
Oh, sorry, Richard, you've got more. Okay, this is the time for questioning only. You will have time to make a case later.
Yeah,
as
I
well.
realise that, but I
Okay.
have a very low threshold for inaccurate responses to my questions, Chair. I apologise. Perhaps I should save confronting inaccuracies to my statement, but I'm constrained in the statement because I'm not allowed to go beyond the remarks that Farhana has made in her original statement. Bearing in mind, I mean, I was a professional voice user, and as a consequence, I'm aware that even if music might be inaudible, background music raises the level of conversation, the volume of conversation, and these premises are not enclosed. It's basically a weather protected outside venue as far as I see it, the terrace. So my question to Elena is, bearing that in mind, and you're talking about a 9:30 finish, would you regard it as unreasonable for background music to cease if it were a condition made by the this committee? Would you regard it as unreasonable if they were to stipulate that background music should cease at 8:30?
If that's the biggest concern of everybody, we're happy not even to play music.
Oh, great. Thank you. I hope that will be recorded.
I don't see that as a big issue, so we don't have to play music.
Well, I mean, a lot of the music, I mean, I know these are other providers, and sorry, maybe I should say before I go further that your general operation is something that I would welcome in the area. I just, in response to local residents and in what I know of the particular location, which prior to it being separated off comprised a school playground, I'm very unhappy about its location and its proximity to residents. The operation as stipulated sounds very commendable. So I haven't got a gripe against your business. I've got a gripe against your location for business. Would you similarly, you mentioned that no drink is to be served without food. So would you regard it as unreasonable if the committee were to stipulate as a condition, which means that it's legally enforceable, that no alcohol should be served without food and that all patrons should be seated when receiving alcohol, and that would serve the effect of putting a legal ceiling on the number of 40? Are you happy with that?
Yeah, 100%.
Thank you very much. You mentioned that there will be children's events. I noticed that you're applying for alcohol license from 12 noon, and I would invite the committee to think very carefully about those hours and the fact that the school, which is adjacent to these premises, will be operating at the time that alcohol is served. But I think I've made that point. Would you be prepared to be made of a condition that no alcohol should be served when children are present? When there are children's events. You spoke about events which you plan which are not actually related to this application, but you mentioned that you're planning to have community and children's events. Would you be prepared to have as a condition, a legally enforceable condition, that alcohol should not be served during these events? Is that reasonable?
Because I don't think that's reasonable. I mean,
Why not?
Would you say that the rest of the places around Walthamstow should do the same? There's so many children's birthdays celebrated in pubs where parents are present.
Yeah, pubs are not on previous educational land and immediately adjacent and occupying a corner of a school site.
I really believe that's not relevant, what you're saying now.
So the fact it's adjacent to a school site is not relevant.
Chair, could I interject?
I think it may be relevant. It will be something the committee will take into account in relation to the licensing condition that, we want to prevent harm to children. Mark, quickly.
Why is Mark allowed to interject
please.
when he is not the applicant?
He is a joint applicant in the sense that he owns
he's
the
land,
leaseholder of. He doesn't own the land. He's the leaseholder. I'm going to just allow Mark briefly to intervene.
Just to respond to Councillor Sweden's concerns. For example, when we've had open dialogue with the school, not the academy, the school and the headmaster and the senior leadership team there. They are planning their own events in the summer outside the school hours that will have an offering, which we understand could also include alcohol, for example. That is to raise funds for the school and the operation of the school. As you're aware, educational institutions are under increasing pressure to diversify their own income, and I believe it's down to the operator to be responsible with that. So I don't think there's, I think in terms of operation of alcohol, I would be surprised if we would want to hamstring schools to run events outside of, term where they can open up to the parents and families of the school to run their own events. So I'd just like the committee to maybe consider that.
That sounds like an argument, Mark, for limiting the licence for Lacy Nook to be outside term time. So I have a question for you on that. Do you believe that the academy would agree to such a use, bearing in mind that they caused the revocation of Mr. True's letter?
I haven't had any direct communication with the school, the academy councillor. All I can say is that I approached the headmaster, not in a personal capacity, obviously, and then through concerns raised by local by some parents who decided to revoke that. So that is totally, their right and their choice to do so.
Okay, Richard, do you have one more question?
Yeah, it's to Mark and Elena, really. Have you agreed appropriate insurance arrangements, and are they in keeping with the current obligations under the lease?
We're working on it because we were advised that while we're still a building site that cannot be organised.
Okay, thank you very much. I take that as a no.
Councillor, just on that, we pay annual premiums to the local authority, so I can take an action and look into that.
Okay, but currently it doesn't. Does it cover the proposed use?
I don't believe we wouldn't have requested that anyway, because we'd have to ask for a pro rata, and we haven't got a pro rata review outside of the policy renewal, which I believe is towards the end of the year. And we, like I said, we haven't opened yet or confirmed a opening date.
Okay.
But as I've said, Councillor, I can take an action on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think that's all my questions. Thank you very much for answering them. And I've no wish to prejudice the viability of Wood Street walls, and took note of the rather astonishing increases that they're obliged to pay on their rent, which, if this licence were not to be agreed, I'd be prepared to have a look at and make appropriate representations.
Thank you, Richard. And I think you'll have to communicate independently with Mark on that. So we move on. We do not have responsible authorities today. We are going to have representations from the other parties. That is, all of you who have just put questions to Elena and Mark. You may want to make a representation as well now, and this is your opportunity. But there are quite a number of you, so I'm going to limit you to 3 minutes each, okay, to speak. And this is to put your case, and we may ask you questions after that. Okay, so can I start with Andrew again, if he's here? No, he's Matthew.
Chair, Matthew has had to leave. He has sent me a written statement to read out.
Will you read that out, please, Chris?
Yes, I will do. So this is the statement of Matthew Abbott. My representation is from the perspective of the London Borough of Waltham Forest licensing objectives, the protection of children from harm. This is my main reason for objecting at a very basic level. It feels wrong to create a precedent for the sale and consumption of alcohol in such proximity to a school. Harm can take many forms and may including moral, psychological and physical harm, and could be short-term as well as longer-term cumulative harm. As a result, it seems very difficult to be sure that permitting sale of alcohol adjacent to a school and on a popular route home from other schools in the area where there is no permanent licence or historic precedent. Examples of harm could include normalising or glamorising the consumption of alcohol where this might not previously have been the case. In addition, it may also cause harm to children in families where addiction to alcohol has or continues to be problematic. The potential for harm is further exacerbated by this being a largely outdoor venue and easily visible from the public highway. I would ask the committee attaches an appropriate weight from the email from Jill Elyard, Director of Education South of the Reach 2 Academy Trust, which runs the Woodside Primary Academy adjacent to the premises site, despite Jill's representation not being received by the deadline. The email, on behalf of both the Trust and the school, strongly objects to the granting of the permanent licence for the premises. As per Jill's email, I would ask the committee should also note that it is being confirmed that Mr. Tues's letter of support was purely written in a personal capacity rather than that of the head teacher of the school. Mr. Tues's letter was incorrectly referred to by the applicant as a letter from the school. This is very much not the case. The details within the application form about promoting the protection of children from harm are very much boilerplate text and are almost wholly focused on actions that will be taken within the premises itself, but do not address the mitigation of harm to children attending school in close proximity to the venue and walking past it regularly on the way home. This, I would imagine, is because it is impossible to do so. The school use and granting of an alcohol licence are wholly incompatible. The prevention of public nuisance. To estimate the likelihood and materiality of any public nuisance, for me at least, it is helpful to consider the baseline noise pollution in the vicinity of the premises. It is within a wholly residential and education area bordered by Wood Street, Shernhall Road, the railway line to Chingford, as well as Oliver and Rowland Roads. The only existing commercial premises trading with the public, i.e. shops, cafes, etc., are on the boundary roads of Shernhall and Wood Street, and these premises face onto those boundary roads themselves. There are no other premises within the internal zone that currently has any form of alcohol licence. Made in Portugal has one, but that faces directly onto Shernhall Road. The premises is at a closed-off intersection of Barrett Road, and therefore noise and disturbance from through traffic is practically non-existent. Given the above, the current baseline from noise, music, late night activity, cigarette smoke, etc. in the vicinity should be very low indeed. As a result, if the license is granted for the proposed hours, it is very likely that public nuisance will be created for local residents in the form of conversation, raised voices, and background music from the premises itself, but also from patrons making their way home when the venue closes at 10 p.m, which again is really quite late in a wholly residential area with a large number of younger families and older residents in the immediate vicinity. And that is the end of the statement of Matthew Abbott.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris, for reading that out for us. Okay. Ruben, have you got a statement?
Yes, I've got a statement.
You've got 3 minutes. Please try to keep to 3 minutes if you can.
So
thank you.
Noise and nuisance. I know that planning matters are not direct consideration by the subcommittee, and I'm aware that the applicant will argue that the changes to the use class laws enable them to open the restaurant without change of use application. However, consideration of the 2017 plan application that applied a use class B1 to the premises provides important context in determining the licence application. In granting of that 2017 application, a specific condition was attached to the consent stating that the building should not be used for any other use so as not to cause a nuisance to local residents. This shows that the character of the area has been assessed by local authority planning experts to be found to be in need of protection of noise and nuisance. In short, it confirms without doubt that there is a sense that this is a sensitive residential area which can easily be harmed by noise and pollution. Therefore, taking this clear evidence that the sensitive character of the area, it's important to look at what mitigations the application proposes to protect residents and the area from noise nuisance. From my reading of the application, no mitigation is in place. Firstly, the proposed bar/restaurant is constructed of lightweight timber with a polycarbonate roof. It is also open to the elements on 3 sides. No acoustic baffling or insulation is in place, and there is nothing to the design to stop the spread of considerable noise that will be generated by up to 40 people and music from spreading into the local community. Acoustic controls do not appear to have been considered in the design at all. No technical evidence is provided by the applicant to show how sound will be controlled. Further, there has been no modelling to determine the level of noise likely to be generated. Therefore, the applicant cannot say with any certainty that their operations will not disturb the neighbourhood. Consequently, the applicant has provided no viable, tested or authenticated evidence to demonstrate the proposals will not cause noise nuisance to an area characterised as sensitive to harm by the local authority, and no mitigation through design have been outlined. Safety to the public. No planning or building control approval for the structures that form the restaurant are in place, and therefore the applicant cannot demonstrate that they are safe for public use. Again, no technical information pertaining to the safety of the building structure is included in the application. Further, from reviewing the plans, they show that they do not even meet the basic requirements of Part M, and therefore safety and access for all has not been achieved. As an example, the covered area can only be accessed via steps, and there appears to be no contrast between surfaces and levels. Pollution, the restaurant has no filtration or extraction system. Although they have clarified that there does appear to be one in their hut. It is open to the air predominantly, and the means of particulate pollution is known to be harmful, particularly to children, and increase in the local vicinity, including the adjacent school. Again, no evidence, no formal evidence is presented to show how this harm will be controlled or mitigated. Fire safety, again, there is no fire safety plan in place for the structures, and it cannot be said to be safe. The plans only outline operational controls, and there's nothing in there about building safety, combustion, etc. And also, I would like to reiterate other people's points about the proximity to the school.
Ruben, can I intervene? You have been speaking for considerably more than 3 minutes, and I would also like to suggest that you engage with the planning department on some of the issues that you're raising, because it seems to me that a lot of what you're objecting to is going to be dealt with under the planning.
No, I would disagree with
department.
that, in that what I'm objecting to is the noise, as I set out there, and the fact that they presented no evidence.
Yeah, I heard that, but a lot of some more of what you're presenting is to do with the planning issues. But please carry on for a very short, if you can though, try to keep it short, please. Thank you.
Again, I agree with what others have said about the school. And that does take me to the end of my statement, but I would clarify my references to planning there are not directly, I'm not stating that because they have planning permission they cannot have a license. I'm using them to illustrate and demonstrate the fact that the basics of building and compliance have not been demonstrated, and to show the character of the area. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Okay. Carolyn, have you a statement to make?
I do, yes, thank you.
And again, I'd like to ask you to try to keep to 3 minutes, please. We have a lot of people who want to speak. Thank you.
But I'll do my best. It was helpful, I think, in particular to hear from Mark as to the context for this venture. But I have to say, I am not clear as to how the Lacy Nook would financially support the art space, given that it's a separate commercial entity. And I'm not asking for an answer to that now, but I think that answer would have been given in that part of the presentation if it were essential. And I hope that there'll be other ways of helping Wood Street Walls with their projects if this doesn't succeed. We would all obviously support local employment and arts initiatives, but there are easily 200 households in immediate earshot of this venture. And their overwhelming view from what you're hearing today is that this venture will have a negative impact on our quality of life. And I think that has to weigh heavily against this license being granted. As Richard Sweden said, I like the idea of it, I like the look of the food, but it's just not the right place. And I think the committee may be under a bit of a misapprehension as to the layout of where this venue is. The grounds in which the venue is located were until relatively recently a playground, a part of the school grounds. So it is immediately adjacent to the school. There isn't any way of pretending that it's not visible from the school, because it's open on two sides, and we live within 500 meters of 3 primary schools, and thousands of children go up and down our roads every day, and they will pass that venue, both sides of it, at school dropping off time. And it's also worth noting that we are now a school street, so we have lots more children playing outside than we ever have before. And Brook Road, in fact, closes one Sunday a month so that children can play. So in the evenings and at the weekends, we will also have lots more children out, as they should be, playing in the open air, and they will therefore be exposed to anything, people drinking in the venue while they're doing that, and potentially also to drunk people walking up and down our road. And I think, just coming back to one of the other points that the applicants have raised, where they've been keen to distance themselves from the venture from last year, and seem to think that we're confused in some way with the venture from last year, but we're not. The conditions that they've sought in this application are the same as for that venture. It's alcohol, it's food, it's music. And having walked past there several times a day while it was open, I never saw more than 20 to 30 people sitting down. So really, it's going to be very similar in its character to the venture that was there last year, which means that we have direct, relevant experience of how this would work in practice. And that is why there's such a degree of opposition to this, because we all know exactly what will happen because it happened last time. And I haven't heard anything to reassure me that that wouldn't happen. And in fact, the only difference between that and now is that this application is to extend opening times and to increase the number of days. And I'm sorry, but I'm not convinced in any way by assurances given outside of the licensing application process that they wouldn't open on certain days, that it might not open at certain times. If you have a license that's 12 to 10 p.m. 5 days a week, we should expect you to use that license to its commercial limit. So in terms of the space, as I say, immediately it's in amongst our houses. It's right in amongst our houses, but the space itself is essentially open. So the idea that you might contain noise and smoke and smells.
Hello, Carolyn. You have been speaking for more than 3 minutes. Can you try to wind up, please, very soon?
I can tell you that the last time this happened, we had drunk people up and down our street, a chucking out time, which was extremely disruptive, and I expect that to happen this time. Outdoor smells, cooking smells, we had that down the street, but in fact this time it would be worse because it would be 5 days a week. And I want to make some points about the school. This is not a family restaurant, in spite of what they say. It's clear from publicity that the target market here is professionals with money who will come without their kids and who they expect to come from outside our area, given that what they've said about public transport. There's no kids options on any of the menus, and the price is out of reach for most local residents. This is a family area, and in fact, the demographic is that 30% of children at Woodside Academy are in receipt of pupil premium. That's way higher than the national average. The idea that they would stop and have a cocktail and a meal outside school is actually quite offensive, when actually that and I think it's divisive to suggest that that's a viable option when over a third of people who will be walking past there every day couldn't ever hope to afford to eat or drink there. And instead they could be walking past looking at people eating in the venue drinking.
Carolyn, can you wind up, please? Thank you. We have quite a few more people to speak.
Crime rates. It's an absolute established fact that crime rates go up where alcohol is served, and where licensed premises open. And I don't know why the council would impose on a quiet residential area an increased risk of crime. So I really like the idea of the restaurant. It's just the wrong place, utterly the wrong place.
Thank you, Carolyn. Next, I have Sulaiman, if you're here again. I take that as a no. Alex?
Hi, Chair. Again, Alex had to leave to work commitments, but I do have a statement from her.
Oh, okay. This is Alex who's left a statement. Thank you, Chris. Can you read her statement, please?
Yep. So this is the statement of Alex Smith. I just wanted to add the crux of my objection to this application, due to me being unable to join this session beyond 2:30 as voiced at the beginning of the call. I object based on the establishment being a public. I object based on this establishment being a public nuisance and due to its proximity to primary school. The area is fully residential and an establishment of this nature should not be permitted in its current location, especially with high street opportunities on Wood Street a stone's throw away. Why are the Lacy Nook not opening on the main high street, where there will be a higher footfall and the residents will not be disrupted, and where it is away from the primary school? The consumption of alcohol, noise disruption and operational hours in such proximity to residents and a primary school all are concerning to me. The pop-up last year had a huge disruption to the area with increased noise, drunken behaviour and rubbish increase. The promotion that the Lacy Nook have made on their Instagram profile promotes the establishment as a restaurant and bar, contrary to their opening statement on this call, and they talk about hosting events in the minutes from their meeting last week, which again is contrary from them being a restaurant. Moreover, they say they weren't responsible for alcohol last year, yet they cannot deny that they still want an alcohol license. So how can they assure us that the same behaviour and atmosphere won't occur? Moreover, the outdoor nature of the premises and design of the space will in no way absorb sound and stop that impeding on residents. Lastly, my strong concern is the proximity to the school. Having a drinking establishment next to a primary school is not responsible behaviour and will have detrimental impact to that school. I'm a parent and I would not send my son to a school with a restaurant bar next door. I don't agree that this establishment will be good for the community. Residents don't want it, and I strongly urge councillors to take our experience and concerns into consideration. And that is the statement of Alex Smith.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris, for reading that out, and thank you, Alex, for leaving that with us. Okay, next on my list, I have Romy. You have spoken already, Romy, and it was about an issue that's not about this licence. Have you got anything to say that is actually about this licence application at the moment? You're on mute, by the way.
Hello, can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay. What it is our house is just right opposite the venue, and it's given us a hard time last year. the noise level is so high, and then we actually go across the road and tell them to put it down, but then they just ignore us. And also, they're just taking a bigot basically at the time, and then now they're applying for a permanent license. It's going to be more worse.
Okay. That's all you want to say at the moment? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for keeping it brief as well. Okay. Thomas, have you a statement to make? Thomas?
Yep, not necessarily a statement. I just want to echo what Matthew, Caroline, Alex Smith, what everybody's been voicing there. There are serious concerns, definitely around alcohol, noise, disruption, and the fact that it's so adjacent to a school. I think these are all very serious matters that should be considered by the panel, and I hope they're taken seriously.
Okay, thank you very much, Thomas. Anne Philp, you had questions before which were mainly about the planning issues. Have you any a statement to make about the license application?
I have.
Can you try and make your statement within about 3 minutes, please?
If I don't alter what I've actually prepared, it will just be fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I've actually headed up this consequences of not following the rules. There are only 11 private houses, the school and Wood Street Studios in Barrett Road, and there are objections from the school, plenty of residents from before and after the barrier in Brook Road. In Greenacre Gardens, the music and noise from the events cannot be heard by residents in Block B, 9 flats. However, I've been informed that there is illegal activity taking place late at night on the public highway. The Secretary of Block D Management Committee, Mr. Lal, has not submitted representations, but he has signed the petition. He represents 32 flats. The impact alcohol has on the wider community on crime and disorder and antisocial behaviour is well known and understood. I have always followed the rules. I'm not your average pensioner choosing to reside in Wood Street Ward, living a solitary life. I love living in this diverse community amongst young families and their children. I've never forgotten my grassroots and do all that I can to help the tenants, who are mainly young, hard-working families with children. I've expressed concern there's no hard hats in the building site. From 2008 to 2018, I worked from home in Greenacre Gardens as Company Secretary of London Tiling Company, a VAT-registered construction industry screen contractor with appropriate CSCS skill cards to work on construction sites with company workwear, safety boots and hats. I would really like to know who the contractor is, how the subcontractors are paid if they're not a registered contractor, and more importantly, the risk assessment should itemise the skills of all the workers on site. And without it, it's a matter of public safety. It's still going on the building site now. From 92, 30 years, I've been Company Secretary of Barrett Road Block A Management Company. There are 4 flats. I'm there as a leaseholder. There's 3 landlords in the block with tenants, 2 of which have selective council property licences.
Excuse me, I'm wondering, you've strayed off into talking about the planning matters, and now you seem to be straying on to
public safety as raised in my
yeah, that's under consideration by the council's planning department. You did talk about the effects of noise and crime and disorder that can be created by licensed premises that have an alcohol license. I'm just wondering what your next section is about, because it doesn't seem to be relevant.
Well, I'm contending that the occupiers of the schoolhouse yard, Wood Street studios, Wood Street walls and library events have not followed the rules.
Okay.
It should be a matter of concern for the council. I'm explaining to you that the landlords in the property directly opposite have to follow the rules because they are licensed under the council.
Okay, thank you very much, Anne. We know that the council is investigating, in terms of the planning aspects of this site, whether rules have been followed or not. Okay, and we did. Christopher, who's the clerk to this committee, is going to be in touch with you about how you can make contact with the council's planning department with your concerns on that. Okay, so thank you for your input. I'd like
included.
Well, I'm afraid you have spoken for more than 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Anne. Shuna, have you got a statement? Shuna, are you here?
I think Shuna has she's put a message in the chat just saying that she's just had to leave for work, but support statements of Alex and Carolyn and others regarding disruption to residents of the area based on last year. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Shuna, for that, and thanks, Christopher, for giving us that. Okay, and then last on my list is Councillor Richard Sweden, who's speaking on behalf of a resident, I believe. Is that correct, yes, Richard?
That's right.
Thank you.
Farhana Kamka, who is a local resident in Barrett Road. And her points are largely concerning public nuisance and the protection of children from harm. She makes the point that there are children in the vicinity, and particularly that in the modal filter that is at the junction of Barrett Road and Alfred Villas and Brook Road, children often play in that area, which is adjacent to the premises where the licence are requested. And I would add that in addition to children going to Woodside School, and it's a minor entrance at the back which isn't used, there is also St Mary's Church of England School, which has a larger catchment area, and children to St Mary's often walk down Alfred Villas past the entrance and round the corner to the one of the entrances to St Mary's, which is in Brook Road. And indeed, that used to be part of a split site of the same school when it was Warwick Boys School some years ago. She mentions particularly the problem that she's had previously with noise, and says that it has interfered with her prayer time. I'm not sure if this has relevant, but she mentions the unsightly nature of the containers that are in the yard, which I suspect stray into the area of planning rather than licensing. And I would just like to add sneakily that the applicant Elena did mention that no alcohol was to be given to people who were going to consume off the premises. So I would, if you were minded to grant the licence, which my residents and I would oppose, if the committee is minded to grant the licence, they could consider not granting it for off sales, on the basis that the applicant said that they had no proposal to make off sales. So I think that's all I've got to add, Chair, and I'm going to hope I'm signing off within 3 minutes.
Thank you, Richard. Yes, you have signed off within 3 minutes. Okay, that is all the representations from the other parties. We do have an opportunity for the subcommittee to ask questions of the other parties. I'm going to ask Councillor Kay Isa, do you have any questions of any of these other parties?
No, I don't. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kay. And Councillor,
I think we will, obviously, when we do our summary, we'll have an opportunity to delve deeper into some of the issues raised.
Thank you. I have no questions. I'm going to call for all parties to sum up their case now. We don't have responsible authorities. The other parties, you've all simply just made your statements. Christopher, I think you're going to intervene here. Thank you.
Yes, sorry. Just before we jump into summaries, you just need to check if the applicant wants to ask any questions.
Okay. Sorry, yes. Elena, do you want to ask any questions of the residents who've just spoken just now?
I think we're all right.
Okay, thank you. So, Chris, I'm going to suggest that as we have just now heard the statements from all the other parties, do we want a summing up of their cases again?
I think everybody has a right to have a summary or an opportunity to have a short summary if they wish to. Okay,
I will say then to all the residents who are gathered, would you like to, and I will emphasise very, very briefly, sum up your case? And so let's go back to my list. Andrew, I think, isn't here. Matthew? Have you got a very brief summary of your case?
Matthew was one of the residents who had to leave, so I think his statement will stand as his summary.
That will stay. Thank you for reminding me of that, Chris. Ruben, can you sum up your case very briefly?
Yes, I would just like to say that I strongly agree with all the comments put forward by the other residents in objecting to the proposals on the grounds of noise, nuisance and harm, and I strongly oppose the granting of the licence in any form. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruben. Carolyn, have you a brief summary of your case, please?
Just that I hope that the committee will agree that the three key aspects for them to consider in the public nuisance, the noise, the drunkenness, the smells, and the prevention of harm against children, the proximity to the school, it's immediately adjacent to it, and the school streets and the other primary schools, and the example that's set. And thirdly, the fact of crime inevitably being elevated wherever there's a licensed premises. I hope you agree that we use a lot to think about on all three grounds.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn. Sulaiman, I think, is not here. Yeah. Alex is not here. Romy, have you got a summary of the reasons why you don't want us to grant this license? Romy,
yes,
are you still here?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I sincerely hope that the license not to be granted, because it's not very good for us, especially just across our house. That's all.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thomas?
Yeah, just echoing exactly what all other residents have expressed their concerns about. I think having just moved into the area is such an incredibly nice community feel to it. Having this restaurant would just entirely disrupt that, and I really hope it's considered as an objection. Thank you, Thomas.
And Phil, have you got a very brief summary, please, of your case?
Yes, because I didn't go, I had quite a lot of my statement unfinished. I would like to stress the importance of the school streets where the premises is. And as it's filled with seating and containers, there are no spaces to park for the painters, for the builders, for the chefs. Most importantly, the nuisance that this causes is beyond belief. I live directly opposite it. They block the pavement constantly, and I rely on it to leave my home. I don't drive, I have mobility issues, and I object most strongly that a license is given to this premises. I wrote to the council leader last July when the councillor let me down. And I stress the importance of the pop-up pubs continuing beyond the temporary licence that should intervene.
And this is now not part of this licence consideration.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for all that you've said today. Shuna has left, and Richard, have you got a summary of the case that you've put for your resident at Barrett Road?
Public nuisance, protection of children from harm, noise and disturbance, and the effect that this might have on the children in the immediate vicinity, particularly during school hours or when events specifically aimed at children are taking place on the premises.
Thank you very much, Richard. Okay, thank you. We have one more thing to do, which is to ask the applicant to sum up your case, please. And please do try to keep it brief. We have heard a lot and we've had a lot of questions and answers. So, yeah, if you can sum up as briefly as you can, please.
Sum up, and to reiterate, we are not a bar. We do not intend to behave in that manner. We would like to be a restaurant that gives people the opportunity to buy alcohol with a meal. This is all we are asking for. We're not planning on having booze-soaked weekends with late night drinking. This is what we do. This is what we are associated with. And we've carried out several pop-ups which involved alcohol, and there was no problems in terms of crime all across the borough. So, yeah, that's about it, really. You know, we have a good track history. We've never had any trouble.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, the subcommittee is going to retire now to discuss all of this, and there is a lot here to discuss. Thank you, everybody who's contributed today, and thank you, Elena and Mark and Jason for putting the case for this licence. We will get back to you. I think we probably won't get back to you today. So we will close this meeting and the subcommittee will join another meeting to consider. And